A lane bully armed with high mobility and high damage output. By understanding his kit, you will best be able to utilize his mobility and strike fear into your opponents. Yasuo's passive is made up of two parts, Intent and Resolve. Intent doubles Yasuo's critical strike chance but reduces crit damage to 90% for auto attacks and 75% for Steel Tempest. Resolve allows Yasuo to generate flow while moving. Upon reaching 100 flow, the next damage he takes will consume all of his flow and will shield him for an amount based on his current level. Since Yasuo gains a shield from moving, you should look to always be moving to keep your flow high and benefit from its shield as often as possible. Yasuo's Q, Steel Tempest, thrusts Yasuo's sword forward, dealing damage to all enemies in a straight line. Hitting an enemy will give Yasuo a stack of Gathering Storm. After reaching 2 stacks, the third use of his Q will unleash a whirlwind in a straight line, knocking up all enemies. You can use Steel Tempest during Yasuo's E to cast Steel Tempest at the end of the Sweeping Blade. Steel Tempest will critically strike all enemies hit, but will only apply on-hit effects to the first enemy hit. Its cooldown is reduced by attack speed instead of standard cooldown reduction, so it will benefit you to include attack speed items in your build. Steel Tempest is Yasuo's biggest source of damage next to his auto attacks. Due to its low cooldown and zero cost, you should use it early and often to harass your opponents. You should also take note that hitting enemy champions with Steel Tempest counts as an auto attack and will aggro nearby minions, so be sure to take their damage into account when making trades. Steel Tempest is also the key to unlocking his ultimate. Since it's the only thing in his kit that can trigger his ultimate, it is important to keep track of your current stacks of Gathering Storm so that you can use your ult properly when needed. To further ensure that you can land the whirlwind and trigger your ult, you should try to use your knockup during Sweeping Blade, making it harder for your opponents to dodge it. Yasuo's W, Wind Wall, creates a protective wall in front of Yasuo, blocking all incoming projectiles and their damage. Wind Wall will block ranged auto attacks from all champions except Thresh and Kayle. Since it has a long cooldown, you should consider saving it to block an important enemy spell such as a Blitzcrank Grab or an incoming Ash Arrow. It is also important to note that Wind Wall will not block laser projectiles such as Lux or Valkaz's ult, or even Lucian's Q. Yasuo's E, Sweeping Blade, allows Yasuo to dash a short distance toward a target, dealing magic damage and marking them for a short period of time. Once you dash to a target, you are unable to dash to them again for a short period of time until the mark fades away. Each dash in short succession increases the damage dealt to the target by 25%, capping at a 50% damage increase. Therefore, it's good for you to use E on your minions before Eing to an opponent during a trade. The speed of the dash is dependent on Yasuo's current movement speed. This means that slows to Yasuo's movement speed will hinder his ability to dash quickly. It also means that you should itemize to be sure to include items that give Yasuo added movement speed to make the most of his effect. Sweeping Blade is Yasuo's mobility and outplay tool. You should use it to dash through a minion wave when you are looking to catch up to a fleeing enemy. You can also use the dash to dodge skill shots in lane. Be sure to charge your Sweeping Blade stacks before going in on a trade. Getting that 50% bonus damage will greatly increase your chances of making a favorable trade or even getting a kill. Sweeping Blade will generate about 7% of your max flow with each dash, so if you are looking to gain a shield quickly before making a trade, dash around until you reach max flow to give yourself an edge. Sweeping Blade's cooldown is also unaffected by cooldown reduction, meaning that Yasuo will not benefit from blue buff like champions such as Zed. Last Breath blinks Yasuo to the nearest airborne enemy, and upon arrival he instantly generates maximum flow and suspends all nearby airborne enemies in the air for 1 second, dealing physical damage to them. Additionally, for the next 15 seconds, Yasuo will ignore 50% of his target's bonus armor. Casting Last Breath removes all stacks of Gathering Storm. You can cast his ultimate within the duration of any enemy being knocked up. You should wait until the last second before activating it, allowing you to stack your crowd control and giving your team a chance to do extra damage to your opponents. It's also important to note that Last Breath will automatically attempt to position Yasuo outside of tower range if Yasuo activates the ability on an enemy standing close to the edge. You should make use of this information when deciding whether or not to tower dive. Last Breath can also be activated if an enemy is displaced by abilities that are considered knockbacks. This means that spells like Tristana's ultimate or even Trundle's Pillar can help Yasuo get off a successful ultimate. Since Last Breath can only be activated on displaced enemy champions, you should look to pick Yasuo when you have a team composition that includes several different forms of displacement. Try to only fight when you have full flow. This will significantly decrease the amount of damage that you take. Because of the nature of Yasuo's E, it is ideal to use it to gap close toward the enemy, to poke them with an E plus auto plus Q, and use Sweeping Blade again to dash back out. This gives Yasuo lots of room to harass with abilities while not taking much damage in return. This is how pro players trade in lane. Some knockups such as Thresh's Flay and Riven's third Q have a very short duration, so be ready to use your ultimate as soon as you see those abilities are being used. Yasuo's biggest weakness is crowd control. Going in without knocking up multiple enemies is the fastest way to die in teamfights. Try to wait for the best moment to go in, preferably once you have the opportunity to use your ultimate on several enemy champions. Yasuo is a massive damage threat and can be a huge force in the late game. By understanding his kit and pushing his abilities to the limit, you will be able to dominate your lane and carry your team to victory.